Hello, I'd like to welcome everyone to tonight's regular meeting of the Monroe Planning Commission. It is Monday, July 27th, 2026, and it is 7 p.m. Hannah, will you do roll call, please?
I'd be happy to. Commissioners present in establishing a quorum: Commissioners Dawkins, Lockhart, Lowe, Peterson, and Wersch.
Thank you. And I don't believe, do we have anybody sign up for public comment? Nope. All right, we will go ahead and move on to old business. Agenda item 4.1 is a critical areas update, and this is workshop number 2, and Kate will be guiding us through that.
Thank you. All right, as Hannah's getting this uploaded, just a reminder what's in your packet. It's basically the same packet you saw 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago at your last meeting. The new information are the comments that we've received so far, which came from the Department of Natural Resources, Tulalip Tribe, Snoqualmie Tribe. I am expecting that we'll get something from the master builders as well as I always forget the order, if it's Camino, Snohomish, or Snohomish Camino Realtors Association. They typically do comment on critical area ordinances. And again, this is your opportunity to ask questions, voice concerns. We have one more workshop scheduled in 2 weeks. Your first regular meeting in August is another workshop, and then we have the public hearing tentatively scheduled on August 24th. Next slide. So the next 3 slides are the same as you've seen before. Just a reminder that the current code, if you want to look at it, is Monroe Municipal Code, Chapter 2280. It was last updated in 2019, and as required by the Revised Code of Washington 3670A130, which is part of the Growth Management Act, we are required to periodically review our critical area regulations at the same time as we're reviewing our comprehensive plan and other development regulations. Again, the original regulations were adopted back in 2005. They were significantly updated in 2017, the focus being wetlands, and that was at the direction of the Washington Department of Ecology, who significantly updated or provided new scientific information. The 2019 update was very limited, but it did include a significant change, and that was the stream water typing, and that was for consistency with the Department of Natural Resources, changed to S for shorelines of the state, F, which means fish-bearing, NP, which is not fish-bearing with perennial water flow, and NS, which is non-fish-bearing with seasonal water flow. Next slide. Again, we did not hire a consultant team to do this review. It was done all in-house. The documents that we relied on were the Department of Commerce's Critical Areas Update, the Washington Department of Ecology Critical Areas or Wetlands Update, the Department of Fish and Wildlife and Department of Natural Resources both had a lot of resources available online. The Washington Department of Health for the critical aquifers, reaching out to some of the state agencies, and then also reaching out to other jurisdictions that have successfully updated their critical areas. So that is where we went for the review part. We did, and I mentioned this at the last meeting, but the 60-day review period through the Washington Department of Commerce, they send it out to all Washington state agencies for review. And that Friday, I also sent it out to interested parties, which include the master builders, a couple of development groups, utility providers, many of the agencies that work within the city of Monroe that would not receive it from the state's distribution list. Other things that we've done, Amy Bright and I attended the Science in the Park event on on July 18th. We did talk to a couple of people regarding that and handed out the flyer that takes you to the website that is up and running. The August edition of Monroe This Week will also have a short blurb about the project and will also provide a link to the website. and then the process you're going through, and then City Council. Next slide. Again, a reminder, this is a balancing act. There are 15 goals under the Growth Management Act. The Planning Commission and City Council need to think about this as you're reviewing comprehensive plan and development code changes. The ones that are most applicable for this update are, of course, protecting the environment, also thinking about private property rights, housing. We have a lot of new housing goals. And so just, I think what I'll do in the next packet will give you those specific goals instead of just the titles, so you can remember what these all mean. One thing in here to note, and some of the questions we've received, but reasonable use and variances are tools that we use trying to allow property owners to still have viable use of their property while at the same time protecting critical areas. I think one of the best examples we actually have right now is River's Edge apartment complex at the southeast end of the community. They actually got a reasonable use variance to do that development. Next slide. All right, so what's new, and I started going over this at our last meeting, but really I chose to do a full rewrite because as I started doing the strike through edits, it was just all red, and I didn't think it was helpful for you. So this is a clean review, but in the report that I provided, again, I did provide your decoder ring, which shows you what the current code is, how it's transitioning, if it's being removed, and then I'm also illustrating in that what are the new code sections. So that's really your guide to if you want to do a full-blown comparison between what exists today and what we are proposing. Best available science, we've been over this a couple of times, but this is specified and required by the state. It's actually one of the Washington administrative codes. The next one that I wanted to highlight is the critical areas review, and I did touch on this at our last meeting, but this section is really trying to provide, make this more user-friendly, explain when the report is required, who has to pay for it, at what point is it reviewed, and how it's reviewed. So that's another new section. And then I also mentioned this at the last meeting, but the previously altered critical areas, this actually comes out of the City of Everett's code. I thought it was helpful for the City of Monroe and open to conversation if you like it or you don't like it. Next slide. Okay, and then the critical aquifer recharge areas, we've talked about this several times. This was something that was missing in Monroe's code. Although we do not have any sole source aquifers, we do have very sensitive soils, and unfortunately, it's most of the land that's already developed and south of US 2. So we're really in more of a situation where when this code comes into play, we are going to have legal non-conforming uses. So I think I made that clear. I know Tony asked a couple questions about that a few meetings ago. And those uses, if they become legal non-conforming, they are allowed to continue as long as the use does not lapse for 6 consecutive months. The other section that we've talked about and brought up at the last meeting is section 2280.050, and that is the select vegetation removal. So Kelsey, I hope you had a chance to review that. Okay, and now we're getting into the sections that were modified. The critical areas report, it's now, in my opinion, clearer. It also has more details of what we're expecting to see, and some of the revised changes are specifically coming from either the Department of Ecology or the Department of Commerce. There are requirements that we need to do more due diligence, where you're comparing the existing no development versus development and really putting an emphasis on that mitigation sequencing, which is do not touch the critical area, avoid it. And then you're going to the least impact possible, and then you're going to have to do mitigation. And so that is a big emphasis that you'll see throughout these revised regulations. Next slide. And then the sections that I just wanted to highlight that are changing, again, these are changes but not complete new. They're not new, but they're being revised. So in the previous code, it lumped permitted, exempt, and reasonable use all in one section. We have now created three specific, or we've made specific sections, and again, we're trying to be much more detailed so people have an easier time of understanding what we're trying to regulate. That's true with the mitigation. The financial guarantees replaces the bonds section, and again, we're being much more clear, articulating how we're doing this. So bonds are typically, we require that the applicant provide the cost estimate for doing the work and bringing in the plants, and then there is a % increase on top of that, and that's the bond amount. So we do that already today with, with critical areas, but also with subdivisions and some civil projects. Enforcement, one section that was lacking is that there wasn't a component to it, is if you did replanting and all the plants died, we didn't have a tool to go back to ensure that they survived and they were actually functioning and doing the job that they're supposed to. So that section's been added. The wetlands I added here, there are no changes to the buffers or replacement ratios. This really is talking about, we were looking at some of the buffer, I think it was the buffer reductions. So it's more of the administration of this section. It's not the pieces that are most concerning when you talk about wetlands, and that's really the setback requirements and replacement values or replacement ratios. The fish and wildlife, this is the one that is a complete redo. Again, we used to have a separate section for streams, and then we had a section for fish and wildlife habitat conservation areas. Because of the direction that the Washington State Department of Fish and Wildlife, they are the ones who are providing us the science right now. They have a direction to go for riparian management zones, and so streams are now part of that. And so instead of looking at, there's some work that I've been asked to do from their comments, and that's going away from stream buffer to riparian management zone. And the next slide, in 2 slides, I'll kind of explain how that works. The slide that's up right now, this shows you the differences, and so Department of Fish and Wildlife has a mapping tool, and it has all of these polygons all over the city of Monroe. And you click on each polygon, and it tells you a site potential tree height at 200 years. And so these buffers are based on tree species and the estimated total height. So the city of Monroe has historically tried to find the best way to protect the environment while also thinking about property rights. At this point in time, I am recommending that we not change the shoreline or the fish streams. They're already at 200 feet, which is quite substantial. You will see that if I use the site potential tree height, that could increase it another 15 feet for the shoreline and up to another 35 feet for fish. And in the critical areas report, there are a bunch of, I included diagrams to illustrate. So if you're in the critical areas report, it begins on page 19. There's an overall map that shows the different classifications of the streams. And then on pages 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, and 25, it's a snapshot of the streams by their classification. It includes the length of the stream, what the current buffer is, and then if we were doing the Fish and Wildlife recommended buffer. Some of them are extreme, and I'm still trying to figure out a solution for one of them, but haven't quite figured it out yet. So anyway, you can see I've tried to illustrate for you where these streams are located, what my recommendation is. I will note that the Fish and Wildlife volumes 1 and 2 for the potential or the site potential tree height, they do recommend that we have a minimum of 100 feet for the buffers, and that is for shading, removal of contamination for stormwater flow. And so when I did my analysis, for the most part, for both the non-fish bearing, perennial, and seasonal stream flows, we can use either model if we're at 105 feet. So that's just one thing to put in the back of your thinking while you're thinking about these different buffers. Next slide. Okay, so the picture on the top left is a non-fish bearing perennial stream flow. This comes off at the south end of Lake Ty. And then the map on the bottom is showing you the variation if you're using that site potential tree height. And so the area closest to the lake on the south side, it doesn't have data, so it says you need to contact the Department of Fish and Wildlife for their recommendation. Then if you go to the north of that, which is the southwest portion of the Frylands, they say it should be 105 feet, and that's based on a red alder. So working my way east, the next one is 105, the next polygon is 105 feet based on red alder. And then you go to 100 feet for red alder. And I cannot tell you why there's a difference in the tree height. I really need to reach out to Fish and Wildlife, but it is based on their assessments. And then again, so it varies between 100 and 105 feet all the way through. And this is just a demonstration of why I think it would be much more helpful if we are keeping static buffers, but looking at changing the minimum requirements. And the picture, I'll go back. That's one of our coworkers' sons who found a blue bullfrog at Lake Ty, which is technically an invasive species, but it's really unusual to find a blue one. Okay. And then the comments from the agencies and tribes. For the most part, it was a lot of thank you for including the information. There were a couple typos identified in the critical areas report itself. The Tulalip's had some good suggestions regarding for the reasonable use exception and some of the disconnected buffers. So I will be addressing all of these before your next meeting. Just like the comprehensive plan and the work that Amy did on the Davis pre-annexation, it will be the agency comment on the left and then staff's response on the right. So most of these, I think, are either noted or we can make some changes. The Snoqualmie tribe is requesting that we use 100% the site potential tree height, 200-foot buffer for the riparian management zones, and then Fish and Wildlife had a variety of comments, some regarding definitions, some clarifying text. And so I will have a full report back to you before our next meeting. And then, let's see here, make sure that, okay, next slide. And then just a reminder, we're gonna have, we've got one more workshop set up for you, then the public hearing, and then hopefully you'll be ready to adopt findings for council and then have this going to council in September, October. I'm being pretty optimistic here. It might go into November. And so my only other thing is I have received comments from Eric If any of you have other comments, please send them so I can start working on responses before your next meeting. And I'm happy to answer any questions, note your concerns. Were there any specific topical areas you want to cover?
I'll start off with a question. Is the city, with the draft as it is the city anticipating any potentially challenging impacts to like properties and
Yeah.
property owners?
So that's a really good question. For the areas that I would see being impacted the most are where we are adopting critical aquifer recharge regulations. But as I stated earlier tonight, if you have a use that is active today or a site that was developed under current code, it's legally non-conforming. It gets to stay there. Then in the analysis that I've done for the street, so wetlands aren't changing, so there will be no impacts there. Our code is not changing. But for the streams into the riparian, the two zones, the two non-fish bearing zones, for the most part, they're already built out. So it's not going to be impactful. And then again, I am recommending we not change our current buffers for shorelines of the state and fish, so it's our current code. So I am hoping that we are really minimizing new impacts that people would not expect that is different than our code today.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from Kelsey?
Hi. I would like to see Eric's comments, if that's okay. Or are we allowed to see all each other's? Or is that
Yeah.
strange?
I'm not prepared.
Oh no,
So
yeah.
there's
No,
about-
I'm saying as an email or whatever.
Yeah. I can send you the email tomorrow, but I will tell you there's about 40 actual questions in there, and so it'll be part of your packet in your next meeting.
Okay. And I'm not sure for page number wise what works easiest on going through some questions with you.
Sure.
Because when you said, so I'm on page 53 in the agenda bill or page 12 on the second section. But it says that the landowner is allowed to put trees in a different location, in a nearby location instead of on their property if they cut trees down. So it's in section K.
Yep.
Why would we allow that? Or can we not allow that? It needs to be on the property.
So there are certain instances. Okay, so I assume.
It's K and then K to D.
Yeah, so the two instances I can think of, we have a scenario where trees were taken down in a wetland. We would prefer people not being in there, so being off-site might be a better alternative. But we're still
to go replant.
Yeah, this is all this. You have to do a 2-to-1 replacement with a 1-year restoration plan. But the piece that you were asking about talks about the location, and it could be because of the critical area that was affected, or top of slope would be another one. Okay. We would be concerned about replanting it on the slope. That could be creating more of a hazard than we're trying to replace.
Okay, and then I guess I just have a bunch, but I can just send them to you. But there was a couple about like exemptions. So on page 22 of that, so it's exempt activities and forest practices are exempt from our jurisdiction or exempt from these rules.
So we have our
Is it because
own,
they already have their own?
we have our own, and so they have to follow that, which is, I'm really glad you bring that up, because the Crofts reference, the way our forest practices code refers back to our critical areas, so I need to make sure that at least one of them is requiring the review and assessment. So I'm glad you brought that one up. Forest practices. I will have an answer before the next meeting, or a confirmation.
And then for nonconformance on B, I was wondering what would be an example of a nonconforming structure in a wetlands? Would that be because we're now moving the buffers?
Yes.
Okay, got it. I think we already talked
Yeah.
about that. So.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of. Well, anything that's in the city as of 2005 should generally not be in a critical area, with the exception, this will be adding a brand new chapter for critical aquifers. So we've got basically, our entire city is built on that soil. So that would be an example. Or if we annex, that'd be another one. Yeah, those are the ones that come to mind. Because our current code, it already establishes pretty strong buffers for wetlands, streams, steep slopes, and we're not significantly changing those buffers. So it's going to be pretty limited.
Okay. And then on limited residential density transfer, can you just explain what that is? So it says an owner of a property containing a critical area may be permitted to transfer the residential density attributed to the critical area to another not containing a critical area or its buffer, so you can just like transfer it? Or I'm
Yeah.
not understanding.
So Monroe, the way this code, and this is in the current code, is if you have a property and a quarter of the property is impacted by some critical area, whatever could have been developed on that piece of the property, you can transfer it to the remainder of the property that is outside of the buffer. And in order to do that, we are allowing you to make some modifications on the bulk standards, setbacks, lot coverage. And so we're trying to achieve, especially for housing, we don't want to lose that.
Like density?
Yeah, and so some other codes will have it where you can transfer to a different part of the city. That's not something Monroe has ever done, and so we're trying to find a way to allow it on the property, but outside of the critical area and its buffer.
So maybe those buffers could be, or you could have more density in the front.
Yeah.
Even though it's small.
Yeah, so, I mean, if you're looking in B, it talks about the density transfer, it's talking about modifying the bulk standards, and then there's also a provision for the zoning administrator, giving him or her a little bit more flexibility as well, trying to encourage that to happen.
Okay. And I had one more.
Yeah.
I'm looking for it though. So this is the general development standards on page 37, and it says if available, impacts may be mitigated through the purchase of credits from a mitigation bank approved by the state and federal interagency review team. Is that like last resort? Because I've seen that happen with developers where they just pay for this and don't have to like move a wetlands, and they don't have to, because they just paid this bank.
Right, so the way the current code works and continuing forward, you have to go through the mitigation sequencing. So the first is avoid, then limit, and then replace.
And it wasn't like that before?
No, it was. It's the same statement. I mean, Monroe is actually kind of lucky. We have a wetland bank in our commute, well, just south of our community, go past Cadman. But yes, you have to show that you cannot do your project on site without avoiding, and then you have to
Okay.
work down. It is not an automatic, here's a check,
Okay, good.
clear cut the property,
That's good
fill
to
the
know.
wetland.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Any others? Carla?
In the reading, when it talks about, I think it's two different, I'm not sure, I don't write down exactly the pages, but, so some areas have to be like fenced off. Now, that primarily just on private property?
So when the fencing comes into play, typically with a new subdivision or a plat, and our current code and the proposed code, fencing is not a outright requirement. It depends on the situation. Signage is absolutely required. And Lance and I have had this conversation quite a bit. In some instances, the fencing is not helpful. And so there is some flexibility in that, but it is typically with a new, some kind of division of land. It's not just a site development.
Okay, so that's not a hard thing that certain areas have to be fenced. Okay, that was one of my questions.
Yeah.
And then the other thing on the vegetation, so if you have one of these areas and it's on private property with the vegetation, I know some things were exempt of that you could cut down or whatnot. So when you are trimming or, I'm trying to think of the right word, take care of these areas, does that have to all be pre-approved before anything is done?
Well, if you're taking down a tree, absolutely. If you are
I'm
doing.
thinking more like the vegetation and maintaining.
Yeah, I was trying to remember. That is actually the section that Kelsey was asking about earlier. Subsection K. Just a second, give me a second.
Like blackberries is one of those things that obviously can just go crazy.
Yeah, okay, so it's on page 11 of the draft document itself. And, okay. Okay, so on the invasive and noxious weeds, you can go in with the hand tools. You do not have to get permission from the city.
So okay, that's what I was wondering if you had
But
to or not.
the next section, if you're doing anything with trees, you absolutely have to contact us. And if you're using the chemical application, you will also have to contact us.
Yeah, I understood that, but I wasn't sure of the maintaining or
The blackberries,
So
yeah.
that kind of stuff, they wouldn't have to get approval first.
That is correct, as long as it's being done with hand labor and hand tools. If you see somebody out there with a backhoe, please give us a call.
Thank you.
Yeah.
One second, I do see Kelsey. Do Eric or Nick have questions? You first. Okay, Kelsey, go.
Okay, and on page 7, the native growth protection easement, is this new to our city? Is this new? Or like,
A piece of it is, we've had the tracks forever.
and where would that be? Is there an example of?
So, okay, wait. Which section are you asking
It's
about?
on page 7, but it is
The E? The easement?
protection requirements and E, yes.
Yeah, so this is not new. This is actually directly out of our new code, our current code. The piece that is new is we are also requesting that notice be put on title, and this is to notify property owners. We have a situation in the community right now where somebody didn't know that there was a huge wetland in their backyard, and they've cut down some trees. They would have there's nothing in the paperwork they signed when they bought their house. And so we're hoping that that would be a good tool to notify property owners. But the easement itself, that's not changed.
Okay, I think that's really awesome that we're doing that. And I was wondering, so is there a bond? It kind of went over it, but is there a bond from the developer on those ones? Or if it exchanges hand, now it is completely, like if it's within the 5 years of this new development and all those things die, but the developer has already sold all of these houses, does that flow with, I know it said it goes with the land, but should something be tied to the developer within that 5 years? Or,
That is a great question, because if the subdivision has been finalized, all of the houses have been constructed, the homeowners association would be now responsible if, in this scenario where there's a critical area, it would be on the homeowners to ensure that the plants are still alive. It would no longer be on the developer's dime.
I wonder if there should be like a holdback for the homeowners association for that bond, or if that's with the city still for the 5 years?
Well,
like it was
the bond
before?
would already be in place.
Oh, okay.
So that's a really good question. The bond would already be in place.
Because I have seen that happen before
Yeah,
too.
because we would require that before, we require the bonds be in place prior to final plat approval. So it would still be with the developer, not the HOA. We would still have that contact.
For the 5 years?
Yep.
Oh, okay, so
Yep,
that's already.
because the money is being held against whoever created that financial note.
Okay, gotcha, cool,
Yeah.
right on.
Any other questions? Nick?
So correct me if I'm wrong. Homeowner has a hazardous tree in the buffer behind their house, and they have to take it down in an emergency type of situation. Now, if I read this correctly, they should have to notify the city the next day and get an engineer involved to draw some drawings of the removed tree and what to be replaced.
That is correct. But you can remove it if it is like life danger, safety hazard. You remove it, and then we would work with the property owner after the fact.
My concern is a lot of these property owners are already suffering from all the inflation we have today. So if they're already having to pay to have this tree removed in an emergency circumstance, then in theory they're going to have to go pay an engineer to basically draw a map too, are they not?
They would have to get a wetlands or depending on what the critical area is, that's the type of specialist they would have to hire to figure out the replanting. Yes, I agree. I hear what you're saying, but we also are obligated to protect the function and value of the critical areas under state statute. So this is the best way that we have figured out to do it, is allow that dangerous tree to be removed immediately and then work with them for replacement.
Thank you.
I hear you, though. There's a concern about cost. Absolutely.
Kelsey?
There was a section in there where they could take that down right away, and then they'd have 14 days to talk to the city about it. But that's still like not very much time to get an engineer out there, but, and as long as they have a restoration plan and it demonstrates compliance, then they'll be okay.
Yeah.
Any additional questions or comments? No? All right.
All right. I will see you in a couple of weeks, and you'll get more information before then.
Thank you, Kate. Lots of information for us to digest and continue talking about. Moving on to agenda item 4.2. This is going to be discussion about the Middle Housing Code amendments, and Anita is going to lead us on that.
Good evening. That was fast. Sorry about that. I was expecting the critical areas to go a little longer. So let me log into Zoom really quick so I can share my PowerPoint. Okay.
It's hot. Everybody should stay hydrated.
Okay.
Go ahead, Hannah.
I do see that we have a member of the audience on Zoom raising their hand. We do not accept public comments at this time or via Zoom.
If you wish to make a comment or you have a question, please feel free to email the city.
I think I sent you requests to share. There we go. Okay, sorry about that. Back on. Alrighty, so I'm here tonight continuing the discussion on the Middle Housing Code amendments. On the screen, these are the items that came up during our last discussion, and we'll go through them one by one just to provide you with more information and have the further conversation. And if you have any questions, we can go ahead and discuss that as well. The first thing that came up was agreements and covenants for affordable housing. Second, cottage housing size requirements, and then there was some question on density. Just to recap, this is a list of the proposed code amendments. We are proposing to allow townhomes in the R7 zoning district, allowing cottage housing in all residential zones, which currently are R7 and R15, allowing duplexes in the R15 zoning district, allowing triplexes and fourplexes in all residential zones, creating a new section with the cottage housing regulations, creating design standards for middle housing, affordable housing requirements, density bonuses for middle housing, and adding middle housing definitions. So this is from our current affordable housing chapter. And so the thought is to, instead of creating a different process for the affordable housing requirement in the middle housing code amendments, the thinking is that for consistency anyways, is to reference this section. And the beginning of the section talks about an agreement and covenant. And so before issuance of certificate of occupancy for the home, the applicant or the owner would record with the auditor's office an agreement between the city for these affordable housing units, and this would be binding and it would run with the land, and this would ensure that the unit would be affordable for the lifetime of the unit. In doing some research from other cities, I was kind of looking at what they have for their maximum cottage housing requirement. And according to the Commerce Model Ordinance, their maximum size is 1,600 square feet. Mukilteo has theirs at 1,200 square feet. Snohomish is 1,600 square feet. Bellevue is 1,500, and then Kent is 1,600. The proposed amendment for Monroe is at 1,400 square feet right now. I think there's some discussion on maybe increasing that a little bit, so we can have that further conversation. So looking at the density, currently the proposal is townhomes in R7 to have a density, essentially density bonus, 2 times what is allowed. So currently in R7, it's 7 units per acre. So if you come in with a townhome product, you could get 14 units per acre. Right now, cottage housing is written as R7 would have 14 units per acre and R15 as 30 units per acre. So I was doing some rethinking, and I feel like the 30 units per acre is probably a little too much. I'm looking at some other codes, and Snohomish in particular references the underlining zone for the density. Mukilteo does give the 14 units per acre for their cottage housing, and then there was another city that had that same 14 units per acre. So to bring it in line with what I'm recommending for the townhomes is 14 units per acre in all residential zones. So we can also have that conversation as well after the presentation if you feel like it should still be the 30 units for R15, or we should just have a generalized 14 units per acre for all cottage housing in all residential zoning districts. This is just the timeline of this project. We had our last discussion at the June 8th meeting, and the next day, on June 9th, I did take the interim R7 ordinance extension to City Council. They did adopt it at that council meeting, so that will expire on December 9th, 2026. So we have 6 months from that date. And just a reminder, excuse me, the interim R7 ordinance currently allows townhomes in the R7 zoning district with the density bonus, so 14 units per acre, and then also includes the townhome design standards. The next steps I'm proposing is to schedule a public hearing on August 24th with flexibility to hold another study session at the next Planning Commission meeting, if that's the concession of the Planning Commission. And then I'm hoping to take this to City Council in September with adoption, a public hearing in October. That is my presentation for tonight. I am curious to see how the commission would like to respond to the updates that I provided tonight.
Kelsey?
Hi, how are we defining affordable for in those, when we put it in the title?
Oh, okay. So if you reference the affordable housing chapter, it does give the income brackets, and then you can choose which one of those income brackets you would like to develop under, and then that also gives you an extra density bonus for which one you choose. So that is currently all in our affordable housing chapter.
Okay, thank you. And then, or someone else wants to ask a question?
Any other questions? Carla?
On the R15, or 30 units per acre.
Yes.
Is that due to going higher? Because obviously your acre is not going to get bigger.
Higher as in the height of the building, or?
Yeah, so.
Oh, no. The height of the building, it's still, I believe it's 35 feet in the R15.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you can have townhomes that have, more than one level, more than one townhome. So that's why I was kind of wondering, I don't know how you would get 30 units on an acre, I guess. So is that feasible?
I mean, I'd have to think about that, see. I think it'd be feasible.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's why I was wondering if it was just maybe taking a building higher up versus.
Okay, so no, it wouldn't be higher up, because the definition of a townhome is they're each their own, they're not stacked units. So that's, so they're not stacked. So they're just, a townhome unit would be the main floor would be usually the garage, and then the first floor and second floor. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
So are you wanting input tonight then on like the size, when we were talking about like the cottage housing?
Yeah, that would be great. That would be great.
And so, I mean, I can think out loud and I can probably argue for or against any of the options because it's
Okay.
just how my brain works. But my thoughts on that is like if we're looking at 30 units per acre for the cottage housing, it would make sense to keep that a little bit smaller.
Okay.
And I also, at least in my brain, when I'm thinking cottage housing, I'm just kind of thinking cozy, like, you know, smaller cozy, and that's just kind of the idea, and especially for more housing options and hopefully some affordable housing to get added. And again, I use affordable.
Yeah.
Not much is affordable anymore, but
Correct.
I think of my house, and my house is like 1,700 square feet, just a little bit over. And I definitely, I mean, 1,600 is different, but I definitely wouldn't think of that square footage as much as like in my brain, what I think of as cottage housing. And I also know what that is going to go for these days to have those bigger sizes. And so I like the idea of keeping it at the 1,400
Okay.
square feet. That's my opinion, but
Okay.
I'm one person on our commission, so. Kelsey?
I agree with you on that, on the square footage. Can you go back to the slide of what the density is? Because we hit that, like the 30 units and stuff.
Oh,
We've
correct,
talked
sure.
about this like many weeks of the density part. Is there a way we can have a discussion on like all of us say what we think on this? Because we keep bouncing back and forth on this 30, and I think that what I think is we should go highest as possible, and then like our utilities and everything, if they can't support it, then they can't do it, right? They'll be roadblocked on, okay, you can do 30 you think you can do 30 units, well, our sewer capacity doesn't work there, so now it's 24 instead of just like standard 14. So I feel like I don't really see the problem with us having the highest as possible and then it getting roadblocked when it's just not possible. But
Okay, I
if
see
there
what you're
is a reason, I would like to understand.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
'Cause it's
So
not
let the land itself dictate how many units you can get
Yeah.
versus, yeah, okay.
That's what I feel, just because we are trying to get density. Sorry.
So I need to interject, the sewer and water and stormwater plans were just adopted in 2024, and they had very specific assumptions of the densities. So one of the things Anita and I are working with Public Works, is to ensure that the sewer capacity, because we are basing, that plan is based on a 20-year build-out, and we know not all of it's gonna be built out, but if you're having these higher densities, we need to make sure that we're still getting that commercial development that we plan for. So I wanna put a caution on that, and I know Anita's already working on that, so I'm not sure utilities is the appropriate tool to limit density. I really think
Because
that.
it's already so high because it's pushed out.
Yeah, I mean, if you're using all of your sewer capacity for development in one area, but the plan assumed you're developing the entire city in the urban growth area because of annexation, you may not actually be able to have that plan happen. And the sewer is based on both residential and commercial development.
Okay,
So I really think that a units per acre is a much better way to go. Just my two cents.
I appreciate that. We went through the map so many times, there's just not other places to develop. So it's like, unless we're taking down current places, there's not like any way to get it. So it is a really hard balancing act. It's boggling my mind, so I'd love to hear everybody else's thoughts.
Eric?
Perhaps maybe what Kelsey's getting at is like a hybrid of the cityscape, if you will, maybe a little bit of both, if that's possible. Just if I guess the council's talked a lot about having like a uniform aesthetic with the city, and I don't know if that would be something that would work as well, but I mean, or maybe like a graduated system, something like that. Thoughts?
Well, I can't say that because this 30 units per acre would only be for cottage housing. That could be argument that it's only going to affect these developments. So, because the sewer capacity analysis I'm doing right now is only for the townhome, the 14 units per acre. So as soon as I do that work, it's looking pretty good. I think we'll be fine, but I'm really not doing the 30 units per acre yet. So, but like I said, this would only be restricted to cottage housing development.
Could I add an additional question there? Do you have like a percentage idea of how much cottage housing, is it like 2% of the available space, or some arbitrary number?
Let's see. So currently cottage housing is not allowed. So this code would allow cottage housing. So it's hard to answer that question right now. I mean, it's a form of middle housing, which would be allowed in all residential areas. So it could go in where duplexes could go in, go in where townhomes could go in. It's just if you choose to do this product, you can get more out of it. Essentially, you can get 30 units per acre in R15.
Yeah, and the only things that I would add is that we get lots of questions from people who would like to live in cottage housing, but we have not received any inquiries on can I develop cottage housing. So I think Anita is 100% right on. It is really hard to crystal ball if this is going to be a successful product. But part of our outreach could be reaching out to the development community.
Do other cities, do they have any numbers at all? Like, is that something we can ask?
Yeah, I can check with Mukilteo. They do have some cottage developments, and I do know of a cottage housing developer out there. I just know currently development in general is kind of slowing down. He did have a project in, and he's kind of putting on hold for now just because of the climate, the construction climate. But yeah, I definitely can get some numbers for you for the next time.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions down this way? No. Oh. Go ahead, Nick.
As far as cottage housing, I think 1,400 square feet is a perfect maximum.
Okay.
My question as far as parking for this cottage housing, to my understanding, I have worked on site building some of these before, and they have common area parking areas where you just kind of walk your pathway to your front door, right? Mm-hmm. Is there a minimum set distance or maximum set distance the parking can be from the actual unit itself?
There are, under the design standards, I believe there's the location of where the parking area can be. Let me double check. Yes, so there in figure 2, sorry, I probably don't have the correct page that you guys have, but there's a cottage cluster parking design standard. So there is a design standard for parking where it can be located.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Nope. Oh, Kelsey.
Did we not talk about the R15 for townhomes, or like that?
So currently, townhomes are allowed in R15. The zoning district is.
I mean, sorry, the 30 units in R15
Oh, okay.
for townhomes.
So that's, I don't think I have that as a proposed code amendment at this point. So the 30 units would only be for cottage housing.
Because I don't remember it just being stuck to cottage. That sounds new to this conversation, but.
I think yes. So I think it did come up, and I asked the question on if if R15 should be doubled. So yes, correct. That's correct. I think we had that discussion last time.
With townhomes as well.
Yes,
right?
correct. Yeah,
Okay.
but
I'm just curious why it keeps moving around, or like, what's your concern about having the 30 units?
Just in general, planning for the future, like you mentioned, utilities. I just want to be mindful that there's enough capacity, and that because the analysis that was already done before is that the way our codes and zoning is written, we're on, we can provide those additional units that we're supposed to provide in our comp plan, but we also have to provide for different income bands. So we want to make sure that we're trying to create some attainable housing, different types of housing. So yeah, I just want to make sure that we are mindful of everything. Sorry.
Sorry about that. I feel like we've been talking about density for many years, and then there's this opportunity to get it, and we're just like not taking it. And that just makes me feel anxious about us even getting to anywhere near any of the numbers that were required by the state, because I just don't see an opportunity in any other zoning to do that, unless we're taking down existing houses, which was talked about, where we don't want to do that.
Right.
Because that's, yeah.
Yeah, so I do want to respond to that. When we did the comprehensive plan update, we showed, it was a paper exercise, but we can accommodate that 20-year population and the housing. The piece that's going to be really challenging for us is that new requirement that you have to provide X number by income band, and the income bands are based on AMI, and it's broken out. I'll make sure we have that for you at the next conversation. Density, yes, is important, but we have already shown that based on the change, eliminating the R4 zone, or 4 units per acre, bumping that up to R7, and then we have a lot of planned growth along in the North Kelsey area that we're also hoping will be a mix of use. So what Anita is presenting goes beyond what we showed we were able to accommodate with the current zoning in place that we adopted after the comprehensive plan. So this goes beyond that, and I think the best way to think about it is the density bonuses. It's a carrot. We're trying to encourage these types of developments because they don't currently exist. And one of the things that we hear on a regular basis, well, if I could have more units, well, then I'd be open to considering it. But that is going beyond what we said we can already do based on the comprehensive plan and our current zoning. So hopefully that lessens the concern about us not meeting our obligations for housing and employment and population.
Well, and just offering it on cottage housing when we have a certain income bracket, that would be great, because then it's actually going to the ones that are affordable. So, okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I also want to mention that, so the reasoning for the density for the 14 units per acre for townhomes is essentially that we had some developers come in and said, we need that bonus in order to make this product work for townhomes. So, so that's why we came to the essentially 2-to-1 density bonus for that. So that's for townhomes. But I see what you're saying, Kelsey, about keeping the 30 just to have that, you know, and more incentive for a developer to come in and do it. So yeah, so that's another thing that we can talk about as well. But I feel like just you know, the main point about this these middle housing code amendments is like, let's get it on the books. Let's get this on the books so we can see has an opportunity for developers to come in and use it. Because right now they wouldn't be able to do this. So and then, you know, along the way, if you know, we get some comments that said, you know, this isn't going to work for me, we need to do this and we need to do that, then we can go ahead and go and make some more code amendments. But just talking with developers, they seem pretty happy with the 2-to-1 anyways for the R7 for townhomes.
Any other comments or questions? Nope. All right. Thank you.
And then just one last comment. Do you think we need one more study session, or are you okay with moving this forward to public hearing? At that public hearing, I'll provide more information on the questions I received today. And then also, Kelsey, I can provide an actual affordable housing, the different income limits, just so you can kind of see that. I forgot to put that in the slide. But so you can kind of figure out like what that looks like on that affordable housing unit.
Is anyone opposed to moving forward with a public hearing?
Well, I would like to see that before and how we would, before we just go move it forward and.
Okay.
And how that's gonna be presented to the, public.
Okay.
When, I'm so sorry. It's an alarm, so it's like,
Okay, so I can bring it back one more time before public hearing, is that?
but like how they can look that up, or is that gonna be in the packet too?
Yeah, I can, yeah.
When the public will have access to that then?
I mean,
Like when it,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah, I can put in the packet, definitely, yeah, as a
Just so it's really
reference.
Alrighty, so one more meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Alrighty. I'll make one statement just because I'm not sure if the person who had raised their hand was still here, but I wanted to expand on the comment that if you have comments or questions, feel free to email the planning department, and those will get comments, will get to planning commissioners and city council because it gets added to packets that continue to be distributed and updated as we go along this process. Also, in terms of the critical areas update process, this was a workshop. We are having at least one more workshop. Then it'll also go to public hearing, which is another opportunity for the public to come speak to us in person or to comment online. And then Planning Commission can vote to move it to City Council, who will also have to have a public hearing and a process before anything's approved. So if anyone wishes to comment, there is still time. I am a huge proponent of participatory government, so please let us know your thoughts if you feel inclined. Moving on to agenda item 5.1 is going to be the community development report from May and June, and Hannah's going to give that to us.
Thank you, Melanie. Hello, commissioners. We have the May and June 2026 Community Development Department report. So you'll see on the front page, we have the highlights that has the usual numbers from all of our divisions within the department. And under pre-application meetings, I just wanted to point something out. I don't know if you noticed, but we had 2 pre-application meetings for accessory dwelling units. And a few of you commissioners did a lot of work on the accessory dwelling unit code amendment that was in work in 2024 and was adopted in 2025. And I just think that it's really neat that you guys get to see like the product of your work, because in the 4.5 years I've been here, we would have maybe 1 ADU a year that would come in. And in the last 6 months, we've had 3 ADUs approved. And we would maybe have like 1 ADU pre-application meeting every 4 months. And now we've had 2 in 2 months. So your hard work is paying off. That code amendment made accessory dwelling units a more accessible housing option in the city. Moving on to the projects that are in review, Monroe West has moved into civil reviews, so that one has been approved. 191st preliminary plat, we held a public hearing for that recently. Under site plan review, the Surfer Station 32 has been approved, and I don't know if you guys have noticed, but they've put up fencing and a sign, and they're starting to do their civil construction work for that project. Under the conditional use permits, Gilman Montessori, we had a public hearing for that recently as well. And there is a Gold's Gym conditional use permit that is listed under there. And there was recently interim code amendment for gyms of that size to be allowed or permitted in the downtown commercial zone. And so we actually had 2 conditional use permits that code amendment would apply to. So it's Gold's Gym and a Taekwondo studio that actually opened today. And so we refunded all of their permit fees and their hearing examiner fees for those conditional use permits because of that interim code amendment. Any questions? No? All right, moving on. We have the number of applications and permits. Under code enforcement, we have the numbers there, and it's a continuing effort for us to educate the electoral candidates for the campaign season on the temporary sign permit code and the free, I want to emphasize free permit for those temporary signs that they can get through the city. Moving on to business licenses. Does anyone, there's a lot of them because it's a combo meal deal for May and June. Does anyone have questions on the business licenses? Okay. Comprehensive plan updates and code amendments. Kate, do you want to provide any updates on those?
The comprehensive plan has already been before you. Amy will be taking that to the city council here pretty soon. There are 2 new items that, well, I've received the capital facilities plan for the Snohomish School District, which I expect to also get one from the Monroe School District. That is one of the provisions where you can do more than one comprehensive plan amendment a year, specifically tied to your capital facilities plan. As a reminder, in order for the city to help the school districts, we adopt their capital facilities plans, which also include their school impact fees. I actually haven't taken a look at the Snohomish document. They're currently the only school district that is collecting, so I'm interested to see what Monroe's is doing. So long story long, this will be coming to you in the next couple of months because we're gonna combine it with the capital facility, or the capital improvement plan that you have already forwarded a recommendation to the city council. All of that will be reviewed at the same time as the budget, which we're allowed to do under the Growth Management Act. So that'll be coming to you, I suspect, first part of September.
Thanks, Kate. Does anyone have any questions on the May-June report? No? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Hannah. Alrighty, we will move on to discussion by commissioners and staff. So we'll start down the end with Eric, or not Eric, sorry, Nick.
Hello. First off, there's a lot of construction going around Monroe if no one's noticed. So everyone drive slowly, carefully, because these guys are out there putting their lives on the line to keep our city running. Other than that, it's been pretty warm out, so make sure everyone's drinking your water.
Carla?
I don't have much to really say. Thank you both for your presentations and all your hard work and everything that's put into, especially this whole critical areas section. It's a lot of work, so thank you, Kate.
Thank you, as always, staff, for the amazing work you do, giving us the information that you do, and guiding us through this process. It is hot, so be mindful. And also, because it's hot and dry, please don't light things on fire or throw flammable things out of windows or any of that. I haven't seen it specifically, but it's just, please be careful, because we have one of the biggest fires in state history that is burning right now over in eastern Washington, and there was just a fire that was put out in Snohomish not far from us today. So just be careful. Eric? Kelsey?
I'm echoing that. Anita, we're almost done with this. That's so awesome. With middle housing. That's great. And thank you, Kate. And thanks, Hannah. Oh, and the Renaissance Fair is happening in Monroe, I think, right?
I think it's technically right out, is it right outside city limits? Yeah, it's right outside city limits, but it's still Monroe and it's impacting Monroe because of tourists and visitors and all that, so. Kate?
I don't have anything other than a comment. Going back to what Hannah was talking about, the interim zoning code, I just want to explain how that works because you didn't see it yet. Interim zoning code amendments and requests go directly to the city council. They hold a public hearing. We do a environmental analysis. And then if the council chooses, it typically then comes back to the planning commission for formal consideration following you do your workshop, you hold a public hearing, you have findings and forward it to city council. So there have been a few, the original middle housing, the step housing, co-housing, some of that stuff all went to city council on an interim basis. So I just wanted to educate you on how that process works in case you're like, what? I didn't see that. That's all.
Anita?
Just that National Night Out next Tuesday, we're gonna have a booth, so hopefully we'll see some of you there. Thank you.
And I can't see the faces online. Is Lance online wanting to say anything?
No, he's not.
Okay, Hannah?
Yeah, I am going to be going to Ren Fair. I'll be dressed as a fairy this year. I was a goblin last time I went. And I have really been enjoying visiting downtown businesses in the summer. There's just something like really nice with all of the planters and like businesses with their lights on and going kind of from shop to shop. So just support downtown business. It's great.
A fairy will be a little different than what you looked like last year, won't it, Hannah? If there are no objections, we will adjourn the meeting.